Before a ball had been kicked this season, I went ahead and predicted who I thought each Championship club's player of the season would be, and in today's video we're going to be reacting to those predictions. Let's just say I had a stinker with a few of these. Birmingham, Juninho Bacuna. I think that from the second half of last season onwards, Bacuna was probably Birmingham's best player. Do you know what? As predictions go, I don't mind that one. Bacuna at his best is one of Birmingham's players. We saw him get 6 assists, 2 goals this season. He did have his periods where he drifted in and out of form, but overall another good season for him in my opinion in a Birmingham shirt. Obviously their actual player of the season was awarded to Trusty, deservedly so, but Bacuna, I don't think that was the worst shout at the start of the season. Blackburn Rovers, John Buckley. I really like what I saw from Buckley towards the end of last season. Yeah, this one's a bit of a frustrating one. Buckley had ended the previous season really well for Blackburn, but a couple of injuries have really hampered his progress this season. Only started in 17 Championship matches and he's missed the ending of this campaign for Blackburn because of that knee injury. Blackpool, I'm going to go for Daniel Grimshaw. He's now the established number 1 at Blackpool. Had to sort of fight for that place off Chris Maxwell last time around. Alright, I've had a bit of a howler with this one. Grimshaw started out the season as Blackpool's number 1, but very quickly lost that spot to Chris Maxwell and then didn't get back into the starting 11 until right at the end of the season under Dobby. Little bit of a palaver all season really with the Blackpool goalkeeping situation between Grimshaw and Maxwell. It's been a massive debate that's raged on all year round and I got that call completely wrong. Bristol City, Semenyo. Now there is still every chance that a club from the Premier League comes in with a mammoth bid for Semenyo and Bristol City are forced to accept, and in the end that's exactly what happened. To be fair to Semenyo, he did have a good first half of the season, really came into form at the perfect time to big up his value ahead of January, but 6 goals, 3 assists in the first half of the season. He then got his move to Bournemouth after that. Burnley, I'm going to go for Josh Brownhill. Seems like a bit of a safe pick really with all the additions they've made this summer. I'm going with a player who's already established within that Burnley squad, but could potentially be playing a slightly different role for Vincent Kompany this season, perhaps as one of those more advanced midfielders. Alright, you know what? I'm pretty happy with that one. I had the feeling that Brownhill will be able to adapt to Kompany's new style of play. We spoke about him then playing in potentially a bit more of an advanced role, which we've seen him do this season. In reality, it was Josh Cullen who won the actual Player of the Season award from Burnley, but as we all know, Brownhill was, nominated for the Championship Player of the Year award with all 24 Championship clubs involved. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that pick. Brownhill's been excellent this season. Cardiff City, I am going to go for one of their new boys. I'm going to go for Romain Sawyers. Yeah, not the best of picks in the end with this one. Sawyers did start out brightly at Cardiff with a goal in his debut against Norwich, but after that, was sort of in and out of the squad throughout the entirety of the season. Coventry City, I'm going to throw it out there as Callum O'Hare. Oh, I've had a howler with this one. So many Coventry players that I could have picked, but I went with O'Hare, who, don't get me wrong, is still a fantastically gifted footballer, but he's just been injured for the vast majority of this season. He's only made 8 starts, 3 appearances from the bench, 2 big injuries, just a frustrating year all round. Huddersfield Town, I'm going there again. I'm predicting Josh Koroma to be their player of the season. This one's a bit of a weird one because Koroma, after I made that video, was soon sent out on loan to Portsmouth where he spent the first half of the season, but then he was then brought back in for the run-in and actually scored some pretty important goals for Huddersfield in the second half of the season with 4 goals and 1 assist. So while he's definitely not their player of the season, he did come up with some important moments towards the end. Hull City, Oscar Estupiñán. Now I had plenty of new additions to choose from within this Hull squad, and probably out of all the additions they've made so far, Estupiñán is the player who I'm most intrigued to see going into this next season. Do you know what? The first few months of the season I thought I got this pick absolutely spot on because he started the year like an absolute house on fire. His first 7 games in a Hull shirt, scored 7 league goals, but after that things dried up for him and a little bit of inconsistency in front of goal, and he has been a striker who has scored in patches throughout the season and didn't end the year on the best of notes, having scored just 1 goal in his last 11 matches. Luton Town, Colton Morris. I'm really excited to see Morris in a Luton shirt next season, and you have to say they have quite the plethora of forward options going into this next season. I'm particularly interested to see how Nathan Jones combines them all together, how he spreads out the game time, how they all integrate into this new system. But finally we have got one right. Calling Colton Morris being a hit at the start of the season I think is something that a lot of people had called, but 27 goal contributions this year is absolutely outstanding. In the end I think the actual award was shared between Morris and Lockyer, who are both excellent, but I'm taking that as a victory. Middlesbrough, Ryan Giles. Now as the saying goes, don't fall in love with lone players, but I have a feeling that this may be the case for Middlesbrough fans and Ryan Giles this season. Middlesbrough fans, you can back me up that that has been the case with Giles this season. I was never going to call Chuba Akpom being the revelation this time around that he's gone on to become, but in terms of secondary picks, I think that's pretty good. Ryan Giles, the most assists of any Championship defender this season with 11. One of the best deliveries in the Championship from that left-hand side, and overall, I'm pretty happy with that pick. Millwall, I'm going to go for one of their new signings. I'm going to go for George Honeyman. Oh, I remember at the time thinking for who I was going to predict for Millwall's player of the season. I was going to give it to one of their new signings, and I was between Honeyman and Fleming, but I just thought because Honeyman knew the league a little bit better, with Fleming being new to this level, it might take him a little bit more time to settle in. So I went for Honeyman in the end, and don't get me wrong, I think he's been a really solid addition to this Millwall side this season. 1.5 chances created per 90, that's more than any other Millwall player this season, but I don't think he's quite hit the heights of others in the squad that are in that player of the season conversation, and obviously missed a chunk of it through injury as well. Norwich City, Milot Rashica. Oh, this one was an absolute howler of a take. I just had the feeling that after the Premier League season hadn't gone well for him, after Norwich had spent quite a bit of money on him, that maybe dropping down to the Championship may suit him. He featured in their first few games of the season, but was then promptly shipped out on loan to Galatasaray, and we've not seen him in a Norwich shirt since. So yeah, really bad shout from me, that one. Preston North End, Daniel Johnson. I think coming into this season, there was a possibility that DJ could have been used as that left-sided wing-back, but now with the additions of Robbie Brady and Fernandez, I don't think that'll be the case this season. I think he can now focus on being that creative outlet in one of those number 8 positions. Yeah, all in all, it's been a really frustrating year for DJ. In the team at the start of the season, was then dropped, and we struggled during that time as Lowe chopped and changed the midfield options, and we actually had a good run of form, which sort of coincided with DJ then coming back into the team. But there's every possibility that he has now played his last game in a North End shirt. I personally would be absolutely gutted to lose him. I think of the players that we do have in midfield, DJ is a really unique talent, someone who can pick a pass in the final third and does have that little bit of quality. And while this last season has been frustrating for him for a number of factors, I still think he could do a job for a lot of good Championship teams. Queen's Park Rangers, I'm going to go for Elias Chair. I think that with this year being a World Cup year especially, he's going to be more determined than ever in the first half of the season to be bang on form at the top of his game. Okay, that's not the worst shout in the world. In a season that's been as turgid as it has been for QPR, Chair has been one of their sparks throughout the season. 5 goals, 9 assists, and what I was saying there about him wanting to prove a point before the World Cup especially, I think we saw that. I think we probably saw the best of Chair in the first half of the season under Bill, where QPR were playing at their flowing best. But all in all, his creative numbers have remained consistent while those around him haven't hit the same levels. Reading, Yaku Mate. I think that people might be sleeping on Mate's ability coming into this season because we didn't really get to see all too much of him last season. He was coming off the back of that long-term injury. He ultimately only played 362 minutes of Championship football. Yeah, all in all, it was a bit of a frustrating season again for Mate. In and out of the side, injuries hampering him again as they have done over these last couple of seasons. Just 16 starts in the Championship and then 11 appearances off the bench. Considering the minutes he played, he averaged a goal contribution every 203 minutes, which in a struggling Reading side is actually decent going, but that lack of game time ultimately costing him. Rotherham United, Ben Wild. I just seem to have a knack in that prediction video for either picking players who went out on loan for the entire season or picked up big injuries, and the injury was the case for Wild. He missed the vast majority of the second half of the season due to an ankle injury, had to get surgery on that around January, and we only saw him briefly towards the end of the season. Sheffield United, Anil Ahmedhodzic. I'm backing the new boy to come good this season in Sheffield. Alright, now this is a pick that I am happy with. Ultimately, with Sheffield United, I could have said a fair few players and I would have been happy with my overall summary of them. There are a few players who I think are worthy winners for Sheffield United and their player of the season, but Ahmedhodzic has just been an absolute Rolls Royce of a defender, arguably the best in the Championship in his position this season. I think he's really been that good. And someone who I don't have many doubts over making that next step up for the Blades to the Premier League next season. So he was new coming into the league, I backed him to be good, and in the end he was that, so I'm happy with that pick. Sunderland, I am going for the obvious answer here, but I am going to go for Ross Stewart. Absolutely smashed it in League One last season, 26 goals, 3 assists, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes ahead and then translate to the Championship. This whole campaign just has the feeling of what could have been for Ross Stewart. In his absence, Sunderland have done really well, but it just felt like why with Ross Stewart in that side they were even more of a presence in the final third. Given the minutes he played, he was absolutely brilliant for Sunderland this season. 10 goals in just 11 starts and 2 appearances off the bench. He was averaging a goal every 104 minutes in the Championship, which means that had he played every possible minute of Championship football this season for Sunderland and he maintained that same goal scoring ratio, he would have scored 39 goals this season. So I'm taking that as somewhat of a moral victory in this one, that despite the injury, Stewart has been very good and could have been even better. Stoke City, I'm going to go for Lewis Baker. I think during the second half of last season, he was Stoke's best player. Now in the first couple of months of the season, this didn't seem like the worst of picks. He's ended the season with 7 goals and 5 assists, but Baker lost his place in that Stoke squad in the second half of the season as they found a better midfield balance between Pearson, Laurent and Smallbone, and Baker sort of just faded to the sides really. All in all, been a little bit of a frustrating and inconsistent second half of the campaign. Swansea City, Michael Obafemi. Oh my god, I mean this pick couldn't have been any worse. Obafemi, he ended last season with a real hot streak and I thought that him and Perot were going to light it up this time around, but issues seemingly behind the scenes, him not wanting to be there towards the end didn't help, and obviously he eventually got that move away to Burnley, but all the promise that the second half of last season from Obafemi delivered, we didn't really get to see any of that this time around for Swansea, which was disappointing. Watford, I'm going to go with João Pedro. He scored 9 goals, got 2 assists last time he played at this level. Was fantastic if I remember rightly, especially at the start of that season, and then seemed to fade a little bit as the year went on, but now he's a couple of years older, got more experience under his belt, and I think will only benefit from having that season with Watford in the Premier League last time around. Alright, I got this one spot on. That bit more maturity in Pedro's play this season could be seen, and in what's been an otherwise pretty disastrous season for Watford, Pedro has always been the shining light when it comes to not just the numbers he's put up but the overall performances, and justifiably so. Got a big move at the end of the season to Brighton, so very happy with that pick, one of the few that I got spot on in this video. West Bromwich Albion, Okay Yokoshlu. I could have gone for one of their exciting attackers, but as we saw from West Brom this season, they were pretty wasteful in the final third. So on the off chance that that happens once again, I'm going to back on someone like Yokoshlu being really solid in midfield and the base point of where West Brom's potential success could come from this season. Okay, all in all, I think that's a decent shout, to be honest. He was probably one of 3 or 4 names in the hat to have been West Brom's best player this season. A few other sort of honourable mentions being Jason Malumbi, Jed Wallace and players of that sort of ilk. But Yokoshlu is a classy operator in midfield, and I think that he, next to Malumbi, have worked really well together this season. Finishing it off with Wigan Athletic, Callum Lang. Yeah, Lang was a pivotal part of that Wigan squad that were promoted in the previous season but couldn't quite land it in the Championship this time around. His output in League One was absolutely superb, 15 goals, 7 assists, but that's dropped off substantially this time around. Just 5 goal contributions this season with 1 goal and 4 assists to his name. Not the best of shouts in the end. There we have it though, guys. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Just for a little bit of fun, I do like to do that video at the start of every season, and I'll be doing the same before this next Championship campaign does get underway, and hopefully I'll have a little bit better of a strike rate in that one. But if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.